It's Long Story Short with Carla Marie, brought to you by Vistaprint.
Welcome, everyone. This is the podcast that inspires small business owners through the advice and guidance of fellow small business owners. And this week's topic is all about revenue streams that actually work. And we'll be talking to Amy Faulkner, who is the owner of Gilly Wagon, an event production company based in Seattle, but it is way more than a local event production company. Amy is a creative genius, and I'm excited for you to tap into her brain today. She's also the winner of the Jefferson Award, which is often referred to as the Nobel Prize in Public Service. So, Amy, welcome to Long Story Short. Nice to have you here.
Good morning, Carla Marie. It's nice to be here.
Okay, so you need to tell us first, what is your company, Gilly Wagon?
So there's no easy one explanation. My parents are still completely confused by what I do. But we're event producers. And so Gilly Wagon itself produces events for other companies. We do everything from corporate holiday parties to, but I hate that word corporate, to community festivals. Mm. But then we also have a few of our own brands, and we produce Seattle Cocktail Week. We have Seattle Cocktail Club, Dead Men of Whiskey, a Jell-O shot blog called Make Them Wobble. We do a lot of different things. Hot Sauce Fest is ours. A lot of our own events that happen under the Gilly Wagon umbrella.
And you also have Bartender Circle as well, which is kind of an industry thing, right? Like that's not what someone like me would get to be a part of.
Correct. We have Bartender Circle. There's enough going on that I obviously just forgot one of them. And that is for people in the hospitality industry we've wanted to create an environment where they can share knowledge and have peer support and do all of these great things to advance in their industry.
Okay. And Gilly Wagon as a name, what is that?
Well, when the circus was more of a thing, a Gilly Wagon was the ornate cart that took the circus from one location to another. So it seemed like a fitting name for what we do because we bring the fun from one place to another.
I love that. Okay. Big fan of that. So which of all of those things that you just named, if any of them, were revenue streams that were created during the pandemic?
So one of them changed as a revenue stream during the pandemic, and the big one would be Seattle Cocktail Club. Also, Dead Men of Whiskey was born entirely of the pandemic. And
which is a podcast.
Yeah, it's a podcast about the history and the names behind the names we all know in whiskey.
That's cool.
And then Bartender Circle existed, but it shifted during the pandemic a little bit. But I think our biggest shift in there was Seattle Cocktail Club. At the time the pandemic happened, we had done 5 to 6 small events in Seattle. So the club wasn't super active. It was less than a year old. When we started it, it was because we had these amazing cocktail opportunities that we wanted to share throughout the year, not just during the time of Seattle Cocktail Week. But we hadn't been very active with it. When the pandemic came along, we had, because we're in Seattle and that's where the pandemic kind of took off in the United States, cocktail week was the first event shut down. It happened before any of the closures that we saw across the country. And so we were struggling and trying to figure it out. And at the same time, I knew that our Seattle Cocktail Club members, we hadn't given them much over the last year.
And they're paying members, obviously.
Yes, they pay a small amount per year, and that gets them access to things that other people wouldn't have. And I was just trying to figure it out. But at the same time, all of my friends were doing these happy hours. Like, it's the moment we all got on Zoom.
One. Yep.
Yeah. And I realized that with my friends who I adore, I had Zoom fatigue and did not want to be on Zoom. And it was really difficult to say, I'd rather hang out by myself or with my dog than on a video call with my friends. So I knew that Zoom fatigue was going to be a thing. And I tried to figure out how to transition what was the new reality, which was virtual, into something that was fun and engaging.
But you hadn't done virtual events for Gillywagon or at all.
I was so anti virtual events, anti technology. If there's one thing to fail at an event, it's always the technology. And as humans, we're all about connections and bonding and being together. And like, my interest was creating this experience, and that doesn't come through a screen necessarily, or in my vision pre-pandemic, it definitely didn't come through a screen. It was a thing that happened in real life. So I had to redefine what that looked like even in my own brain.
So now in Seattle, at least, we're opening back up. I know you're having in-person events. Will you continue to use virtual events as a revenue stream for your company?
100%. I think
that's crazy.
I think that they definitely have their place, and they're never going to be a full replacement for in-person events. But there are things that happen through virtual events that I never thought of. And that is, well, we do a lot of events with alcohol. So when we do a tasting, if we can get the product to people to taste and they can do it virtually, they don't have to leave their house.
Mm-hmm.
Which
means we also love staying home a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So like Mondays and Tuesdays, you can do a tasting and you don't have to figure out how to drive home. So there's some benefits there. But also, I think that the world has opened up for us, and we can have people that we would never. I did an event a few weeks ago that was a cooking class with a nonprofit cooking school in Bangkok teaching us how to make green curry. Like, that would have never happened. Yeah.
That's it is incredible that, I mean, for any company, I think this last year, people have learned, oh, I can do this and it's better for my company because of having to go virtual or just having to connect with technology that we've had. But like you said yourself, Amy, you just didn't even want to deal with it. But now it's kind of changed the way your company runs. But all those Seattle Cocktail Club members that you had that were virtual with you, did they stick around? Did Seattle Cocktail Club grow? What did you see by going virtual that has helped your business?
I will say that I know that not every business has done great with virtual events. And during this time of transition, we were all just trying to figure it out, right? So there was a lot of like throwing the spaghetti at the wall and seeing what stuck. But we were very lucky. I did a test where I reached out to 20 Seattle Cocktail Club members and said, if you participate in this 30-minute happy hour twice a week for the next 5 weeks, so they had to commit to 10 happy hours with their camera on for 30 minutes, I would hand deliver them 10 cocktail kits. Ooh. And what they didn't realize, and I'm sorry if they're listening, but they became kind of my test subjects for what worked.
Okay, being a test subject and getting alcohol, though, is all right.
Yeah, well, that's probably why they didn't realize it, because I gave them a lot of alcohol. But I hand delivered it to their house, and and we did different things, from everything from like tastings to just icebreaker games and different things to get them talking and stuff like that. And I saw what resonated with them and what they liked doing. And then I took that and expanded it throughout the entire club. And we have quadrupled in size since the pandemic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's through, I'm assuming, those people telling their friends, hey, you have to come sign up for this because this is fun.
Yeah. And I think one of the most amazing things that never occurred to me, because I was so anti virtual events going into this, is that now that we're transitioning back to in-person events, we're seeing people that have only met virtually through our events that now feel like they know this person somehow. So they did get that connection and bonding that I talk about. It's definitely different, but they got it. And they are very engaged. They already feel like they know the other members. And some of our members have even said that it was the thing that got them through because it was the way that they were connecting with other people.
Yeah. We all need that connection. And that is one thing that you've done with your company as a whole through all of your revenue streams, I believe, is you've created a sense of community and everyone feel like they are a part of what you do. They're just not buying your product. And I think a lot of people hear revenue streams and they think, oh, I got to sell this kind of product for my company and I've got to sell that kind of product for my company. That's what a revenue stream is. But you've kind of proven, no, that's not what a revenue stream has to be.
I have a background in marketing and the phrase cult branding, where you want people to belong to what it is you're selling. And it's been really easy for me because I act more probably out of passion than good business sense at sometimes. I think that if you're bringing a product to market, no matter what it is, and you're passionate about it and you know that what you're going to do is in some way going to delight somebody or change the way they feel about it, then they're naturally going to be drawn to it. That doesn't always work, but with some knowledge behind it, it really, really helps. So I would much rather create an engaged group of people that really likes what I'm doing and they're fans, and it's a slower to market thing. But when something like a pandemic comes along, I feel like you get support a lot easier and it's way more fun to work with an engaged community.
Oh, absolutely. And then they give you feedback, which I think is cool because they are a part of what you're creating. And it's that two-way street you get as a business by doing what you do, opposed to just someone buying your product and just moving on and never speaking with you.
Right. And I think that when you do things like events, you do it because you want to see that joy and delight in your customers. So, and that's part of virtual events. You don't immediately see that. And that's probably why I was a little hesitant going into it. The other thing is the first virtual event we had, at the end of it, I realized that there wasn't any cleanup and I was a little bit sold.
Yeah, that is obviously way better. So we're going to get into this week's 1 minute wisdom in a second. I do have one more question for you before that happens. Why is it important for you as a business to have multiple revenue streams? Like, why not just say, okay, I'll do Seattle Cocktail Club and Seattle Cocktail Week? You have all these other things as well. Why?
I think it's a personal choice. So if and depending on what you want your business to be, if I had wanted it to be just me and one other person, I could just go with Seattle Cocktail Week and that would be the only thing we did. But it is a little bit of having all of your eggs in one basket. So I purposely set out and looked for these other opportunities that were industry related, that it's what my audience wanted. It wasn't necessarily it wasn't like, this is my get rich quick scheme. It wasn't, this is what everybody's going to buy, but it's like, this is what people want. And this is what can bring in that extra revenue stream and make it secure. And I think if 2020 showed us anything, is the predictable is unpredictable in business.
Okay, so let's check out this week's 1 minute wisdom on how to grow your social following, which we all obviously want to know. And that's from Allie Karsh of LVPR.
Hi, guys. I'm here today to talk to you about growing your social following on Instagram. There's a whole nother strategy for TikTok, so stay tuned for that in the future. But in regards to Instagram, step one is share content that embodies your brand ethos. You don't need to always push products or brand-specific content. Develop your personality, and so your audience identifies with your brand and engages. Step two, utilize different content forms. Instagram offers video, photos, stories, lives, reels. So see where your audience engages most and then continue churning out that content. Additionally, you can also test putting ad spend behind your top performing content and see if you can gain followers that way. Step 3 is partner with like-minded brands on a social giveaway, a social contest, a product collaboration, or using live to discuss industry trends or tough conversations. This allows you to share your audiences with each other and both grow organically. Step 4 is have fun. No one wants to follow a boring account, and I think the way that brands have really had success on Instagram is just being fun and lighthearted and engaging their personality and being able to show who the founder is, who the employees are, anything behind the scenes, just really peeling back the layers to give your customers insight and exposure to what's going on behind the scenes and not be so perfectly curated and forced. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.
You can check out more from Allie at lvpr.com. So Amy, you mentioned something about you could just have one employee and continue doing, one thing. So do more revenue streams mean more employees?
If they're successful, they mean more employees. Okay. So I think that there's a lot of mixed messages in business. So there's the whole yes, and you always want to say yes, and then there's you should say no.
Right.
And so I guess you say maybe. And I think that I'm not the person that says no to things. I'm a naturally curious person and I want to explore things and see. And so it means that sometimes you will get into something and then realize it's not the right path. But as things progress, obviously that means having more staff to make those programs happen.
So right now you're talking to other small business owners who are coming here to say, oh, do I need more revenue streams for my company? So what do you say to a small business owner who sees you do all of these things and they immediately go, I want to do a million things like Amy?
Actually, I'd say pace yourself, because sometimes I'm really tired and I don't have kids, and that was a choice that I made. So I have more time to devote to these crazy projects that I'm doing. But I also think that if you're looking into following your heart and what you're passionate about, there's always that extra arm that comes off of it where you can look at it. It's kind of the perspective and looking at it differently. So if you're selling one thing, but you know that your audience really likes this, how do you talk to them about it? Or I think Dead Men of Whiskey is actually a really great shoot off, because I talked about with Seattle Cocktail Week, I was constantly talking about whiskey, and I realized that nobody knew anything about the names we all know in whiskey, like Jack Daniels,
right.
What do we know about the man? So I was just naturally curious about it, and then ended up creating the podcast around it.
So there you have it. Go create a podcast off of your company. There's one revenue stream. Hey, it works. It definitely does. Sonali asked the question, what is your favorite event to host?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I have clients that are going to expect me to say their event. But I will say Seattle Cocktail Week and Cocktail District, which is the tasting event that happens during Seattle Cocktail Week, is my favorite.
Okay. And you keep mentioning Seattle Cocktail Week, how 2020 got canceled. We didn't have one in 2021. 2022 is happening and people can get their tickets now, right?
Yes, they just went back on sale July 1st. The event is happening February 27th through March 6th of 2022, exactly 2 years after it was canceled.
And that is set up to be, is it the largest consumer event in the world?
So Seattle Cocktail Week is both consumer and industry, but our Cocktail District event, which happens on Saturday, is the largest consumer spirits tasting event in the world.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So congrats on that. So
Thanks.
Brittany just asked, what do you recommend for getting people to actually show up to a virtual event? And what is or was your most successful virtual event?
The most successful is a really hard one to say, but I actually think it was an event that was about the history of gin. And I think my definition of success is not just viewers, but
Right.
how engaged people were in the chat. And I think that we got really lucky because that core 20 people that I brought them a bunch of cocktails in the beginning, they became very engaged. So every event that we did after that, I had 20 people that were asking questions and weren't afraid to turn their cameras on and show up in the chat and ask everything. And I think that really helped. So
It's almost like they were the seniors in high school at that point, kind of welcoming in the underclassmen, showing like, oh, this is what we do around here. We'll like raise our hands first because we've been here for a while, but it's a fun time, so come enjoy it.
Exactly. And we were doing, we have a Discord channel, and after we would do a virtual event, we would say, oh, go on to the Discord and you can have a happy hour and continue hanging out. And there were happy hours that were 6 hours after the event. I would pop in and people were still there chatting with each other.
Oh my God. So Casey just asked, was there a particular event you saw when you were younger that inspired you to pursue event coordinating as a career?
I have been an event producer for a really, really long time, but one of my favorite moments in my career as an event producer is I was very inspired, not in events as a kid, by the movie The Goonies, but just the movie itself was kind of this iconic childhood thing for me. And I was involved in the production of the 30th anniversary of the Goonies event and the 35th, which we made a virtual event.
Ooh.
So the Goonies and Willy Wonka and all those crazy things.
So those movies inspired you to create basically these crazy over-the-top events that are experiences for people.
Yes, I feel like there is a little bit of hope that I have coming out of the pandemic, because I think pre-pandemic we were kind of not gillywagging ever, but I think the events industry as a whole was getting to this like rinse and repeat model of events. Like you'd go to a beer festival and the whole experience was you get your cup, you wait in line, you drink a beer, you wait in line, you drink a beer.
Right.
And we've always wanted to have like these experiences that when you go back to work on Monday and you go to the water cooler, you're telling everybody like, I had a cocktail under a 14-foot flamingo, or which I have one in the office with me right now. Just like these weird, unexpected things that bring these moments of delight.
So Dylan just said, have you found that having a podcast, like you said, you have Dead Men of Whiskey, has helped with your customer engagement?
I feel like it's definitely helped with our customer engagement, but it's also helped with that piece of that sense of belonging. So the people that listen to the podcast, and it's a little bit weird when you have a podcast because they'll quote you on things that you said a week ago. And I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but
I know what that's like.
Exactly. So yes, I think that it has helped with customer engagement, and I feel like it's helped with that connectivity piece as well.
So you have mentioned all the different revenue streams that you have. How do you decide if a specific revenue stream is worth putting your time and effort into? And then I guess on the flip side, how do you decide this isn't working anymore?
Some of that is done like here over here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm passionate about something, I usually get the confidence that I can make it work. But we did have two things that we started kind of as a knee-jerk reaction during COVID that we just put to pasture, if you will.
Mm.
And they were great concepts, Seattle Beer Club and Seattle Wine Club. So definitely offshoots of what we do. It's still alcohol related. It's still groups of people. But when it came down to it, we looked at they were slowly growing. And in order for us to make them what we wanted to make them, we'd have to put a lot of energy and time into it. I still think they're great concepts, but I could take that time and energy and put it into those clubs, or I could put it into what we already had existing. So looking at what makes the most financial sense, I think you have to balance it. And like, if you're every month going with what passion is driving you to do, every once in a while you have to say, okay, what makes the most financial sense? And do those two intersect anywhere?
it's okay for a company to decide this isn't working anymore. And you can obviously dissolve that revenue stream. It's okay to let things go.
I think that is one of the hardest things for small business owners is every project you do, you see as your baby, and nobody would want to kill their baby, right? But I think at some point you realize that your own happiness comes into play, and there are limits to what you can do, which people will be surprised that I said that. And so, yes, sometimes you have to make those decisions for the health of what you have going on.
Absolutely. So Isha said, what is a piece of advice to entrepreneurs today in a world where the digital space is a crucial part of the equation of success?
I think making sure that you show up where your audience wants you to show up. So if we had not gone to virtual in a time when everybody was shifting, they would have felt like we had disappeared out of their life. It wasn't, again, what I originally wanted to do. I felt like I was forced into that direction, but now I'm starting to look at as even our Discord channel. I would have never found Discord. Now I sound like I've never used a computer before, but I just think that like seeing what people are interested in and looking at different platforms and talking to your audience, I think that's the biggest thing, and listening to what they want. They're going to guide you, and they're your audience.
So you would say that is like your biggest asset as a company is your connection with your community.
Yes.
Is being able to, they're basically like a focus group that you have every day.
They're like a family. Wow, that's rich. But they're like a family. They are what drives me to keep doing things, and I want to delight them. And it becomes more about them being excited. So when we get to Thanksgiving, they are super stoked about it, and our Thanksgiving, I guess, is Seattle Cocktail Week, and they want to show up and they want to be there, and it's a celebration. Where if I was a bad family member, Thanksgiving wouldn't be fun, right?
It's funny you bring that up and talking to your audience, because when we were live 2 weeks ago, the founders of Happy Box said the same thing, that their audience, their customers are the people who truly help them as a business, because they want to get feedback and they love hearing their feedback, and they'll pick up the phone and call their customers and ask them questions about the product. And it's interesting that you guys are in two completely different industries and you're saying the same thing. And I think that's one of the most important things that any small business owner can learn from this podcast.
And I think if you look at the perspective from anything that you're a consumer of, do you want to have a voice in that? What makes you excited about things, either products or events or whatever that is? It's how do you feel? Like, what are those feelings that you get from the interactions that you have with businesses?
Okay, so if people want to be a part of the community for Gilly Wagon or Seattle Cocktail Club, or just go to Seattle Cocktail Week, what is the best place to send everyone to?
The easiest place is to go to Gilly Wagon. Our website is Team Gilly Wagon, GILLY wagon.com. Okay. And from there's a list of our brands, so you can find everything that we're
So it's like
on.
The longest drop down in the history of drop downs.
Yes,
basically.
I did a digital business card that's more like a 30-page resume and realized that was a bit much.
Okay, so you can go to Team Gilly Wagon to support Amy, support her amazing company and her staff and all of her employees, and come to an event in Seattle or join virtually from literally anywhere in the world. It's Bangkok. You can do it. It's amazing. Yes. Amy, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your advice with everyone. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
See you next week.